Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and it's a privilege to follow the Leader of the Opposition and his contribution on this topic that is really the most important issue this country faces. And I'm going to use my time to shine a national light on the situation of my constituents on the Central Coast, who are in a lockdown directly because of the incompetence and arrogance of the Morrison Government. Let there be no mistake. My constituents know the reason they are in lockdown. They know the reason. Australians are smart and they are more than aware that this government had two key jobs this year: to sort out the national quarantine arrangements and to ensure a smooth rollout of the vaccination, and they failed totally on both of those. And as a result of that, 30,000 of my constituents in Shortland who live on the Central Coast are now in their 6th week of the lockdown. 30,000 constituents who've had their jobs imperilled by this government's incompetence. 30,000 constituents who are having to homeschool their kids. 30,000 constituents who've had their health endangered because of this government's incompetence. And I want to speak directly to those people today. Lake Macquarie is the largest saltwater lake in the Southern Hemisphere. And for those who live around it, like I do, it's a stunning place, and it's a real privilege to live there. And I echo the comments from the Assistant Minister. It is beautiful. But the lake has become a cruel border for many of my constituents. Some of the suburbs in the southern part of the lake are in the Central Coast local government area, such as Gwendolyn and Summerland Point, and are therefore subject to the lockdown, while they can see suburbs directly across as little as 500 metres of water who are living lives relatively free from restrictions. These are suburbs that are literally on the shores of Lake Macquarie, but because they're in the Central Coast LGA, they join other suburbs such as Lake Memora, San Remo, Doyleson, Buff Point and Budgewoi that are in lockdown. And this is causing huge distress for my constituents and huge confusion. For example, one mother contacted me as they live on her family lives on the Central Coast, but her child goes to Hunter Sports High, which is in Lake Macquarie. The child can attend school and even train and play football for the school on weekday afternoons, but is not able to travel into Lake Macquarie or Newcastle on weekends for their teams. This is a small example of the two classes of constituents in Shortland at the moment. But the impact on businesses, quite frankly, doesn't respect that border. The impact on businesses is massive. For example, my constituents Christine and Greg Smith, who own Charmhaven News Agency. Christine had to self-isolate for 14 days after serving a close contact. This has put incredible strain on her business as well as her personal life. Christine has said, "I have to stay in my bedroom while Greg is home. I prepare my meal before he gets home, then he has to do his meal." Last week I chatted with Rodney King, who is the owner of the very well-known hunter business King Coaches. Their business is down a staggering 90% compared to pre-COVID periods. 90%. And I spoke to Rodney, and he was incredibly brave and honest and forthright, but he is struggling to see a way through for his business, a business that does a great service for my community. And you just have to look further north. For example, during the school holidays, my wife and I took our two kids up to Nelson Bay and went on a whale watching cruise. And it was a beautiful day. We got to see many humpbacks breaching in the pristine Pacific Ocean. But we were on a boat that normally takes about 200 people, and this is their peak season. Normally there are 200 tourists, mostly from Sydney, on that boat. There would have been 15 on that day. So I just can't think of the devastation that that business suffers. And then we go to the repercussions from the vaccine rollout on people's health. I have the privilege of having the Hunter vaccine hub in my electorate at the old Belmont Bunnings site. And just 2 weeks into its operation, Pfizer vaccines are now being diverted from this hub to Western and South-Western Sydney for Year 12 students. And my constituents are generous people, and they obviously don't begrudge the HSC students being vaccinated in the 8 most affected lockdown LGAs. But the most basic point is that this diversion need not have happened if the Commonwealth had sourced enough vaccines in the first place. People who have lost their appointments are rightly distressed about it. Deb is an essential worker from Belmont and emailed me the following. I'm an absolute wreck. I've been an emotional rollercoaster since receiving a text to cancel my first Pfizer jab at the Belmont Max Vax Clinic. To say I'm angry is an understatement. To make matters worse, when I get online to try and rebook, I can click right through to December and then no appointments available. And to add salt to my wound, every time I turn the TV on, there is Gladys and the Prime Minister telling me, get vaccinated, get vaccinated. I've also been contacted by Mary Ann Jennings, the principal of St Kevin's Primary School at Cardiff, following the redirection. And Mary Ann says, my staff are very upset because their appointments have been cancelled. Yet as teachers, we are essential workers. That's another example of my constituents wanting to do the right thing, in this case the teacher profession, but are being held hostage by this government's failure on the Pfizer rollout. And to make matters worse, many of the Belmont vaccine appointments were going to people on the Central Coast because, for whatever reason, the New South Wales government does not have a mass vaccination hub on the Central Coast, despite there being 300,000 people locked down there right now. So people on the Central Coast are making appointments and travelling up to Belmont. All their appointments have been cancelled, Mr Deputy Speaker, including those in priority 1A and 1B. Just imagine it. These are the people that this government said should be vaccinated by March. They promised to be vaccinated by March. They finally get an appointment in August, September, October for a vaccination, and the Liberal state and federal governments are causing their appointments to be cancelled. Mr Deputy Speaker, this is a disgrace. And there was a much simpler way. If you couldn't fix up the Pfizer supply, which this government should have done, they should have done what occurred in the UK, which is doubled the length between the first Pfizer jab and the second Pfizer jab, so that those in the Hunter and Central Coast who were booked in for their first dose weren't having to be cancelled. And I'll finish on this, Mr Deputy Speaker, which is that my office and I and many volunteers have been ringing constituents in the Central Coast part to see how they're going, to just check up on them and offer assistance. And I've been touched by the response. People are incredibly brave. They're incredibly supportive of the community effort to get through this vaccine, and they're loath to complain, and they're grateful for the call. But these people know whose fault this is. They know why we're in this predicament. They hold the Prime Minister directly responsible for them being in the lockdown. And one response, in a typical Australian fashion, was, of course it's a bloody race. Of course it's a bloody race, Mr Deputy Speaker. So I'll finish on this. This is a government that has failed in its two jobs, the vaccine rollout and national quarantine. 28 breaches of national quarantine, causing 11 million Australians to be in lockdown right now. The Australian people know that this federal government has failed them. They are in their 6th week of lockdown in the southern portions of Shortland as part of the Greater Sydney region because of this government's incompetence, and this needs to be fixed urgently.